Welcome to Analyzing the 1%. Today we're going to talk about the fundamental role of the arts, of aesthetics, of beauty in society. And I believe that it's going to be very helpful for us to perceive this more clearly because most people don't perceive the fundamental aspect of having art in society. My name is Gilbert Gambucci, and I am from Stop the Destruction of the World Association. I am also an occupier at Wall Street, and I'm by profession a pianist and psychosocial analyst. That is, we analyze the correlation between psychological factors and social factors in order to clarify a phenomenon. And I would like to ask you, what do you think? Does art show us a reality or a fantasy? What do you think? Because most people have the idea that art, even though it's something agreeable, I really like the arts, but unfortunately it's a fantasy and my everyday reality has nothing to do with it. And so people go to the theater or to plays, concerts, and they get really enthralled. They love it. But they feel as though that's a fantasy because our everyday lives are quite different. And I have really another perspective for you today, because this is an inverted idea about the arts. You know, there's nothing that can substitute for social values, for cultural values. Where there are no values in a people, or very little, then you have to make laws and regulations to try to control the pathology of the human being. And so what happens, for example, we see shootings that take place in the high schools and in different places that didn't used to happen, this type of phenomenon, these aggressions. And we notice that there are less values among the people. Partly this is because the United States is always at war. And this affects the entire population, this question of being aggressive. It's collectively, it affects people more than you think. But what happens is, where do social values come from? Where do our cultural values come from? They come from the arts. Social values come from aesthetics, from beauty, from having a contact with beauty. Because inside, when you have contact with beauty, this brings out the essence of being, of who we are, which is goodness. It's the truth, and it's beauty. Being is beauty. And so having contact with the art, it brings out these values that are naturally good, and they can't be replaced by laws. People are imbalanced, and so laws can't hold that together, as well as social values. And so aesthetics, art, is the basis of all social and cultural values. This is one of the roles of art and the artist in society. Do you see how important that is? We have to protect the artists because they're very heavily exploited. They're not, generally speaking, they're not so interested in money as financial people are. And so they kind of have to be protected. In fact, the museums and galleries should belong to the artist. Theaters should belong to the performers and musicians. Why do they belong to somebody else? Musicians don't own the places of work where other people work. Why do other people own where the musicians work? You see, our society is very inverted. And, you can't avoid the metaphysical question in relation to art because it has values in it that are eternal. I would like to, a little bit different today, I would like to read 2 paragraphs of this book, Liberation of the People. It's the pathology of power. It's a study of people who have economic power. And on the front it says, the first scientific study of the psychosocial pathology of people with power. Psychotics who are impeding human development and destroying society. Okay? And there's one chapter in here called Persecution of the Artist, the Soul of Society. And look, the Creator is basically affection. And as the artist is basically emotion, it means that the creator is closer to him than to any other human being. Those who are most rejected by socioeconomic power, artists, women, honest scientists, workers, and children, are precisely those who are most loved by the Creator. When artists paint angelic figures on the domes of churches and palaces, it is because they live in the realm of angels. When musicians bring heaven to the earth, it is because heaven is their home. When sculptors and architects fill the city's parks and streets with beauty, it is because they have grasped this wonder directly from the Creator. This is the real world because it is eternal. The Creator dwells in the hearts of the artist, even though many may be homosexuals. The Creator dwells mainly in the hearts of women, even though many of them may be prostitutes. The Creator dwells in the hearts of men, even though many of them may be thieves and criminals. But the Creator does not dwell in the hearts of the powerful, especially those with economic power, for their feelings are turned towards money and the exploitation of others. The Creator loves those who wish to accomplish something of worth, and He abhors those whose intention is to harm their fellow man. Thus, the commandment to love one another is best honored by those who cultivate the arts. A reading from Liberation of the People by Norberto Keppe. And because the value of the arts is not very well perceived, we have an inversion in society. That is, things are upside down. We see in first place questions of banking and finance and commerce, these things which are actually secondary in a civilization. Economics is the result of civilization. It's not the basis. And what is secondary in society, the arts, science, culture, these things are in second place. So the situation is inverted. The more important, civilization is culture. It is the arts and science and philosophy of life. And in secondary place are questions of finance, economy, how to economize, commercial trade. These are secondary elements. But today in society, the situation is inverted, and we need to correct this. We need to adapt ourselves to the aesthetics, to develop a relationship with the arts, with beauty, with aesthetics, so that we can enter more and more into reality.